Welcome to another episode of the I'm F.I.N.E podcast, where a couple of knuckle-dragging veterans unpack the world of mental health as unprofessionally and informally as possible. I am Eric Peterson.
And I'm Brad Stozic.
And today's episode is about the dangers of groupthink. We're going to define it, give some famous examples of it in both military and civilian settings, discuss why it matters and how it can affect your mental health, decision-making, and personal growth. So sit back and relax as we do our best to take you from being freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional to truly being fine about joining a cult.
Welcome to the I'm F.I.N.E podcast with your freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional hosts, Eric Peterson and Brad Stozic.
I need a haircut.
You need a haircut?
I don't like when I need a haircut. It's weird. You ever think about that?
Don't say that to me.
You ever think about, like, when you see guys that you served with after you served with them and they got long hair and you're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You
No.
get mad for a second? You know what I mean? I know you have long hair. Have you always had long hair? When you got out, after you got out?
After I got out, not super long.
Yeah.
I always did like the longer military cut, if you will. But then one point I was like, you know what? I'm sick of getting haircuts.
Yeah.
So I just said, fuck it.
I want to grow it out so bad, but I can't get over that phase where it's like 2 or 3 inches long, I guess, all over.
And you look like a used Q-tip.
Yeah. Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that. And my head is big enough. Like, I have a large head. Like, I had a specially ordered football helmet when I was in high school. Me and another dude, Jeremy. Sorry, Jeremy. I'm going to call him out. Him and I both have specially ordered football helmets because of how big my head is. So I don't want like my hair to be longer to make my head look even more cartoonish.
What kind of hair do you have? Like mine is flowy and beautiful. What kind
Thick
of
and wavy. Very thick and wavy.
So also flowy and beautiful.
Yeah.
Dude, do it. Do it. Do you imagine how awesome this podcast would be? How much even more awesome this podcast would
See if
be?
I could actually look like Maui.
Dude, Maui and a Jesus resembling.
Like
Can
a
you
great value Maui. Like Maui, if he had a Casey's nearby and really liked Casey's
like
pizza.
Maui's brother? Like,
Yeah.
Like Chowie?
Chowie, Wowie, or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude. I'm like, that would be me for sure.
Fuck
But I don't know if
yeah.
I could grow my hair out.
I always tell people that I'm like the great value Jesus.
Great value Jesus. I think there's a lot of people out there that are telling people they're like great value Jesus.
Not in the sense of like just the way I look, really. Not like the messages and stuff. Like what you get is like, hey. You know what? No, I am the great value version of the dude from the Big Lebowski.
I think all of us want to be the great value version of that, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep, that's what I strive for.
So how have you been doing, buddy?
Good. Yeah. I'm so glad to be back on like a regular basis of recording. I love this.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and I'm really excited because now that we have a setup for another person, some of the episodes that we have lined up now, because we're starting to become a little more organized, is very exciting. Like, we have some really cool episodes coming up talking about some topics that we wanted to talk about for a while with other people. So I'm really excited for that. We are possibly looking at live streaming an episode of the podcast for the first time later this year at Heroes, Hogs, and Hot Rods. So a lot of cool things in the making. But
sure.
So I'm glad things are going well, my friend.
Yeah. What about you? I'm sorry. How are you feeling? You just kind of, I don't mean to.
I'm doing pretty good for the most part. I am just working a lot. Mm-hmm. I am very tired still. January, like I said, was just a rough month. And when you have kids, as you know, and you have sickness that like runs through the house, and January was surreal in a way because we had so many different illnesses move through the house. And then again, it starts with one person. In my family, there's 4 people, so it moves through everybody in the family. And as the 4th person's getting over it, the first person would get a new thing. And we just kept dealing with it. And then it's like trying to get through the fog of war. Like, you're just trying to get back to your schedule, your work, like everything that, you might not have been able to get handled efficiently because you were just dealing with everything else in the house. So, I mean, I think things are going good. I'm excited for this year. I'm excited because we've had some really cool things happen with Project Headspace and Timing. We started 2 new chapters, which is really cool.
Hell yeah.
We never expected to do that. We weren't anticipating or planning on doing that. But I think one thing I had mentioned, I believe I mentioned it on one of our episodes since, but in November of last year, November of 2024, unfortunately, I lost another dude to suicide, another guy I deployed with. And so a friend of mine, another guy that I deployed with named Zach Gilmore, who lives in Clinton, Illinois, which is just south of Bloomington, he reached out to me after, and the other veteran's name was Bradley Minor. After Minor, we found out that Minor had died. Gilmore reached out to me and he's like, dude, I've been following FAT for a minute. Like, we got to do something. I want to bring some of your programming down here. And so we started a peer support group down there, and they started a couple of weeks ago. So now they're working with the veterans in their area, giving them a safe space. And then we got Armando. Shout out to Armando up in Burbank. He is focused on like veterans and recovery and sobriety type events. I mean, by the time this episode airs, it'll already be over, but he's got an event that's coming up tomorrow after this recording that he's doing, which is really cool. So really exciting. A lot of stuff going on. And I just want to make sure that I'm just making all the right decisions, which is exhausting and also sort of a fruitless effort because you never really know. You're making the best decision you can with the information you have, and you're crossing your fingers and you're hoping for the best. So
yeah, I mean, well, if it counts for anything, I feel like it's awesome, and that's so great to hear that FAT is expanding that, because that just means that veterans in other places are going to get the help that they need to lower the suicide rate of veterans. Because yeah, dude, it's. Yep.
The 2024 VA suicide prevention study. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the VA does a study on veteran suicides, and the study for 2024 came out and showed that suicide is on the rise. And they looked at, I think, from years, I could be wrong, but I think possibly 2021, 2022, 2023, or maybe 2022, 2023. I'm not sure. But they're showing that veteran suicide is on the rise. So yeah, any effort is an important one. So absolutely. It's something that I'm very thankful to be a part of.
Oh yeah.
So for today, we got this idea. I had this idea a while ago, but anytime there is an election, anytime politics are politicking, I think about groupthink, and I think about how weird it is to just watch groups of people just immediately like taking sides and following whatever the one person says. And just strange to me. And initially I was thinking about like, we should do an episode about groupthink. And in my mind, I'm like, there's really not much out there. And I started looking it up, and I looked up all the famous examples, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, we talk about doing just an episode on all the case, like on some case studies on groupthink, which I'm super excited to get to.
Yes.
But before we do, what are the sources for today's episode, Brad?
Corporate Finance. CorporateFinanceInstitute.com.
Nice.
Dovetail.com. BrandonGale.com. And McKinsey & Company.
Very good. So before we even define groupthink, Brad, have you ever felt the pressure to conform even when you disagreed?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Nobody in the military has any idea what I'm talking about.
Oh, you're talking about the military? Oh, no, not in the military.
I'm talking about period. You never felt pressured to conform in the military?
No.
I feel like that's what the military
not
is.
even once.
All right, you're fucking...
I am.
Sometimes I'm not sure. Okay.
No, I like even before the military, have I felt, like, isn't that also, like you said, like that's what military is, but in a way, isn't that what high school is? Like, I want to fit in, so...
Definitely what high school is.
Boom.
Yeah. Well... And it's because you just want to fit in and be accepted. And so you feel like to fit in and be accepted, you have to change who you are because you don't want other people to see the real you. Or just because you want to be like everybody else, and everybody else is wearing a red shirt, so you want to wear a red shirt, whatever. But like, yeah, I mean, it's a problem because when you start in the act of trying to cover up who you are to conform to the greater, bigger thing, you're losing your authenticity, which is planting a seed, I feel, that will start to grow into possibly depression and anxiety and all these other things because you didn't get to be what you wanted to be. And it's also kind of what the military is. Like, they need, but understandably so, it has to be that way to carry out the missions and do the things that the military does.
Yeah, I feel like if it's life or death, realistically, not everything in the military is life or death, but at the drop of a pin, it very well could be. So I do agree with you and understand why they have to train you and get you to think the way they do. Like that makes a lot of... Is it right? I don't know. I can't answer that.
For the sake of getting you through a combat experience or war, unfortunately, until we have a better option, which I have no idea what that would be, I think it is right. I mean, it sucks because like when I talk to people about trying to understand the mind of a veteran, and again, with the understanding that the veteran community is the most diverse group of people, arguably under one label, but as a veteran, depending on your experience, when you join like 17, 18, 19, and you are, if you're like me, you're in Fort Benning, Georgia, fixing a bayonet and stabbing this thing that kind of looks like a dude, and you're yelling, you're singing cadences about shooting kids and stuff. Like, why do they do that? Because they're preparing you for stuff that we're not supposed to deal with or ever see or have to do. So, I mean, right, wrong, or indiffererent, unless you got a better idea, it kind of sucks, but yeah, the military has to utilize groupthink quite a bit to get the job done. And we'll talk about some positives of that and some negatives of that here in a few. But so the term groupthink was coined by Irving Janis in 1972. The definition of groupthink is that groupthink is a term used to describe suboptimal decisions made by a group due to social pressures. It is a phenomenon in which the ways of approaching problems or matters are dealt by the consensus of a group rather than by individuals acting independently. Essentially, groupthink occurs when a group makes faulty or ineffective decisions just for the sake of reaching an agreement. I think of the first thing I think of with groupthink, every Jurassic Park movie ever. Every Jurassic Park movie ever, because they're like, you know what we should do? We should bring dinosaurs back. And they fucking bring dinosaurs back. And then they're like, you know what we should also do? We should take the most aggressive ones and we should like combine their DNA. And like maybe we'll cure cancer or something. And everybody's like, yeah, dude,
that's
combine those. That's a great fucking idea. Again, like, well, like you would think on the outside, you're like, that doesn't seem, I know I'm not a scientist. But that doesn't seem like a smart idea. You know what I mean? It's trusting your gut. It's like, yeah, sometimes you lose the what is that saying? You lose the forest for the trees or something, where it's just like you're so focused on one thing, the logic, rationale, and the educated decision that you might make otherwise gets kind of swayed. Because the group says we should do blank or this or whatever. So there's a lot of different examples, I think, of groupthink, especially when you're more aware of what the hell it is.
Yeah.
So some causes of groupthink. One, like-minded group members. So when a group lacks diverse perspectives, it becomes much easier to ignore obvious warnings. Two, autocratic leaders. So powerful leaders can make it hard for group members to demonstrate opposition. We'll talk more about that in a bit. And then number three, stressful scenarios. So time constraints or significant pressure can also increase the desire for a group to reach a consensus faster because they just need to agree on something. So some symptoms of groupthink. One, invulnerability. So members of the group share an illusion of invulnerability that creates excessive optimism and encourages taking abnormal risks. Again, dude, I just keep thinking about Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
You know, like, again, T-Rex sounds great. Like, I can't see anything go wrong. Velociraptors? Hell yeah. You know what I mean?
You got to admit, though, as shitty as that would be for dinosaurs to come back and, like, eat people, bro, the soundtrack to those movies, come on.
Oh,
fantastic.
Epic.
Come on.
Epic. When you hear the
I was just thinking that when you were saying that.
You just want to look off into the distance and see something beautiful.
So, like, I think if we had dinosaurs and their music was playing while I was getting eaten, I don't think I could be mad.
This is the beginning to the 8th or 7th Jurassic Park movie. Like, you know what? We should bring dinosaurs back.
Not so bad.
During an episode of Groupthink.
Yeah.
Perfect. The second symptom, rationale. So victims of this behavior ignore and discount warnings and negative feedback that may cause the group to reconsider their previous assumptions. Number three, morality. Victims ignore the ethical or moral consequences of their decisions and believe unquestionably in the morality of their in-group. And again, all of these symptoms, when we start going over the case studies, are really going to, I think, click for a lot of folks if you're unfamiliar with groupthink and all of this. Number four, stereotypes. Members of the group possess negative and or stereotypical views of their enemies. I think of this one a lot. There is a theme with certain movies. I'm trying to think of some, like I think The Fifth Wave was one. There's an episode of Black Mirror that did this, and there's several movies where you have like a military group, and that military group believes that this group of people are the bad guys.
Yeah.
And then through the movie, they learn that their leadership made them think that these guys were the bad guys, but in actuality, they're normal motherfuckers like you.
Dude.
And they got leaders like your leaders that are like, those guys are the bad guys. You know what I mean? That's what I think about when, like with that symptom.
Fucking,
you know,
you
it's
just
scary.
described Avatar.
Yeah. Yeah. Avatar's another great example.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so it's so easy. I mean, maybe easy is not the right word, but just it's definitely it seems like it's a common staple in a lot of those movies and also throughout history in our examples that we're going to list, where like a group of people has a very charismatic leader.
Yeah.
And that leader is just like, hey, those guys, they hate you and they're going to kill you and your family if we don't kill them first. And then we're like, okay, I guess we got to do it. Fuck them. You know what I mean? Like it
is weird. And the leaders and the people who have the most charisma, if you will, are usually the ones where I'm not saying like you're entitled to your own opinions and stuff, and that's totally fine, but they're usually the loudest about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because they have to drive that. They have to drive their point. They have to move the needle, and they're trying to get something accomplished, and that's how they do it. You know what I mean? They weaponize that charisma. Number 5, pressure. So victims apply direct pressure to any individual who momentarily expresses concern or doubt about the group's shared views. Members are not able to express their own individual arguments against the group. Think about North Korea. You know what I mean? You go to North Korea and you like say something wrong. Like there was that kid, high school student or college student, remember? This was during Trump's first presidency, I believe.
Yeah.
He went to North Korea. There was like a sign up about, I believe it was about Kim Jong-un. I could be wrong. And the kid tore it down. He was from America. And they took that kid into custody and threw him in a fucking work camp just for tearing something down. And he ended up dying. Like some countries do not play.
I mean, I don't want to be like that's ignorant, dude. Like, North Korea, like, yeah.
Well, that's like a naive ego type of thing. When you go to another country, you think it's like ours. Nah, man. Like,
yeah.
Nah.
Yeah.
I've seen some slums, some real slums. And I'm not saying they don't exist in this country. I'm not saying that. But like, yeah, the things that you get away with in other countries, especially depending again on their leadership and how open that leadership is, you could really put yourself in a terrible position.
I agree with that.
Number 6, self-censorship. Victims avoid deviating from what the group consensus is and keep quiet. Doubts and concerns about the group are not expressed, and victims of groupthink may undermine the importance of or validity of their doubts. So they want to say something, they don't say anything, and because of that, these bad things continue to happen.
And that sucks because you don't say something because you just want to fit in, you just want to belong.
That fear of any sort of repercussions, fear of any blowback, for whatever the case may be, but your gut's telling you like this isn't right, but still you refuse to acknowledge it.
And I just thought of like a perfect example of that, dude, Nazi Germany. There's no way you can tell me that all those people, like German people, were like, yeah, that's totally fine. But I think they were doing it because like, hey, if I don't agree, guess what? I might wake up dead tomorrow.
So glad you brought that up. There is a terrifying book out there called Ordinary Men by Charles Browning. It is about the 101st Police Battalion in Germany.
Yeah.
Read this book a while ago, but I remember it vividly because of how terrifying it is. And it is about the 101st Police Battalion in Germany and their slow indoctrination into becoming Nazis. And it is wild. And again, not condoning anything. I'm just saying the book is wild because they take this police battalion in and they just start doing little things at first. Like at first it's like, hey guys, just separate these people into these two different carts, these two different boxcars. Just do that. Just separate them. And then it's like, okay, well, now we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. And they keep stepping it up. And then by like, halfway, 3/4 through the book, these guys are taking pregnant women into the woods, shooting them, killing them, going back to their barracks, and then pounding bottles of vodka. And because they just shot a pregnant woman in the forest. And so again, that's why it's a wild, terrifying book, because this is the real story of how that battalion turned into the Nazi party. So yeah, like people, I have to imagine, were like, this doesn't sound right.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't feel right. But because of the crazy strength, psychological strength of groupthink, this group of people just said, no, we're going to continue following this.
Yeah.
If everybody around me is marching this way, we're going to march. I'm going to march this way too. And it's like, oh my God,
that's
terrifying.
Crazy. It's like peer pressure on steroids.
Yeah.
Dude. It's nuts.
Yeah. And then last one, number 8, mind guards. Victims of groupthink may appoint themselves to protect the group and the group leader from information that may be problematic or contradictory to the group's views, decisions, or cohesiveness. So they think that they're doing a good thing. They think that they're really helping, but in doing so, it's just making the problem even worse. As far as how it impacts mental health, anxiety and stress are definitely caused when dissenting opinions are suppressed. And then there is difficulty in forming independent opinions post-military service sometimes. Like sometimes when you first get out, you have to think a bit on how to think for yourself. Like I think about my first office job when I got out of the military. And the first thing I thought of was, I have to fit in here. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to shut the hell up. I'm not going to talk. I don't want them to know like the stuff that's in my head or what I think, and my sense of humor is probably going to be looked at like super offensive, and I don't know how to be, so I'm just gonna be quiet and go along with whatever's there. So as far as its impact, groupthink in essence values harmony and coherence over accurate analysis and critical thinking of individual members. It creates a group where individual members of the group are unable to express their own thoughts and concern and unquestioningly follow the word of the leader. For example, think of a corporate meeting where the members of the board just not in agreement, instead of challenging the ideas proposed, stuff like that. Like, hey man, should we bring dinosaurs back? And everybody's like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, we just gonna keep. Is that the theme of the episode? Just going back to Jurassic.
This is why the people in Jurassic Park are all just terrible people.
You're right.
But yeah, and so it's really, if you have an environment full of what they would call yes men, it's not productive, because you need that opposition, because iron sharpens iron. You need a little bit of pushback, a lot of pushback sometimes. So yeah, the getting into the tract of groupthink in any group of people, if it's your sports team, if it's your workplace, like if it's your whatever you identify as politically, you just get yourself into a weird spot where you're like, okay, I'm following this because I'm just blindly going to follow this because I feel like I have to, despite the fact that there's that feeling in my gut that says like, wait a minute, I need to think about this. But you just don't listen to your gut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I just thought of too, I'm not sure if you're going to touch on this at all, but when you said that, dude, religion, I feel like, is another good example of groupthink at its finest. Otherwise, there wouldn't be 87,000 different religions, would there?
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, you said fear and tactics, and I use Christianity a lot just because I studied Christianity. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Dude, Christianity out of Rome, Christianity spread out of fear.
Yeah.
Where the Germanic people and people who still had multiple gods, and the Christians came, and because they had weapons and could read, they were like, nope, you're wrong. You have to believe in this.
Right, because they had that power. Because
otherwise, we'll kill you.
Yeah. Like another example that I kind of think fits in line with that is if you've ever read or seen the movie, and the ending is very different than the book. The Mist.
Yes.
Stephen King.
Yes.
So like, I love the concept or the whole situation where they're in the grocery store. So if you haven't seen the movie, The Mist is a book by Stephen King where essentially these people get trapped in a grocery store because there's an alien invasion and there's like mist everywhere, so you can't see anywhere, and there's aliens like in the mist that are fucking killing people. Like that's the long and short of it, right?
Yeah.
So in the grocery store at the very beginning of the movie, and I should say, spoiler alert. I'm not going to spoil the end, but the end's fucking terrible.
I mean, this movie's been out for 20
depressing.
years, I think,
Also
so
true.
I think we can.
Yeah. In the movie, there is a woman who is very religious, but she's also kind of crazy. Like she's just out there. In the very beginning of the movie, people look at her like, dude, that's the crazy lady. Don't fucking talk to her. And by the end of the movie, she has a following where like all of the people in the store gravitate to her. And part of that is because they're terrified. They're terrified that aliens are real. Aliens are real. Maybe that reinvokes their feelings on religion and God if they didn't believe in God, whatever the case may be. But now they're all like, we're going to go to her because she is the one that now makes us feel safe. And we feel like, that because of that, we need to do whatever she says. And then they're kicking people out of the grocery store into the mist to get killed by the aliens because they're not conforming with their ideas. And that's like, ugh.
Super crazy, right? And that, dude, honestly, that is the history of Christianity to a fucking T, dude.
Christianity, there's other religions. Really, any group of people with authority ends up doing dumb shit where they're killing other people for not subscribing to what it is that they're putting out.
Could you imagine if life was like that today? If like Mark Zuckerberg was like, you didn't like Facebook? Or imagine Tom from fucking MySpace comes back and he's like, hey bitches, I'm back.
I wish he wouldn't do that.
No, I know.
Because I just feel like he is so considerate. I feel like he was the best and we did not appreciate him enough.
We didn't.
You know what I mean? Like he just wanted to be everybody's friend.
I was going to say he was everybody's friend.
He was everybody's friend. He was your first friend.
Always.
And I appreciate that. And he had the same picture where he's like looking behind a little bit.
And he's smiling. And
he's just like smiling.
Yeah.
He's a solid dude, man.
Love Tom.
You know what I mean?
Good dude.
So therefore, the impact of groupthink includes the following. Bad decisions due to lack of opposition, lack of creativity, overconfidence in groupthink negatively impacts the profitability of an organization. Optimal solutions to problems may be overlooked. Lack of feedback on decisions and hence poor decision making and dinosaurs. All of those are the result of groupthink. So
you're not even a little bit wrong.
And one interesting fact, studies do show that diverse groups make better decisions, but only if dissent is encouraged, which, yes, I mean, I understand. It's hard to accept that a lot of the times, in my opinion, if you want to do the right thing when it comes to certain situations or whatever, and you have a group or a few people, whatever, that have to make a decision on how to handle something, you have to talk it out, and it's not always going to be easy. It's going to be a little uncomfortable at times for like a lot of people involved because I'm going to give you what I think. If I'm the leader, I'm telling you I think we should do this. You give me new information. If you're my follower and you're like, well, hey, based on this, this, and this, I don't think we should do that. I think we should actually do this. I, as the leader, need to be able to look at them and be like, man, yeah, that's a really good point. You're right. We should do that. Like, You know what I mean? You have to be able to have that not comfortable, but you have to be able to have that conflict.
I think,
you know what I mean? Respectfully.
Yeah.
And have that conflict.
I think personally, as a society, we need to make being uncomfortable the norm, right? I feel like we've gotten to a point where we've made comfort the social norm where if you do question something, like your boss, you're wrong.
Right.
And we've agreed collectively as a society, like that's just how it is. Well, like if the leader of the group says something, they're right.
So I am in a leadership position in 2 organizations, right? Project Headspace and Timing. I'm a superintendent for a Veterans Assistance Commission. And so in doing so, I feel like my leadership style, right, wrong, or indifferent, if I'm saying what I think we should do, and you just say, hey, Eric, by the way, I mean, I think this would be a better idea. I will think about it. And if like fairly quickly, and if it really sticks out to me, like it's a really good idea because I'm pretty open-minded, I will immediately be like, Okay, yeah, that's a way better idea. Let's do that. And then just move on. I don't get angry about it.
Yeah.
I don't get angry that you had a better idea than me because I'm not always going to have the best idea. It's ridiculous to think that I'm always going to have the best idea. But as a leader, I have to understand that what my role is to go with the best idea that has the mission of that organization in mind. So it doesn't matter to me whose idea it is, but if I am the leader and I have the final say, then I have to go with the best idea, which isn't always mine.
What are you? So not only are you a walking fortune cookie with wisdom and all this, you're a fucking unicorn, dude, because I feel like bosses like you, they exist, but not really.
No, dude. So I got into this thread. I fell down this wormhole on, I think it was like Reels on Facebook or something, where this person was talking about their millennial boss.
Yeah.
And how this millennial boss seemed fucking awesome. And the boss just like super rational, was making good decisions based on the need of their people. And that was the video. And then I read through the comment thread. And the comment thread was so motivating because so many people were in there talking about amazing leaders that they have that happen to be millennials. Because they're not taking things as serious anymore. For example, without to sidetrack too much, like if one of my employees is like, hey, my kid has a field trip coming up. Is there any way, is that okay if I go chaperone? Like, yeah. I don't even think about it. I'm like, do we have coverage? Are there any significant issues that are going to take place if you are not working during that time? Because if not, don't care. Don't care. Not in a bad way, but I'm like, yeah, take care of yourself. Take care of your family. You're sick. Stay home. I'm not going to make you feel bad about it. Do whatever you got to do. There are more important things in life. And if I want the most out of you, and I don't think that this works on a corporate scale, probably not. But in a small scale, if I want the business, the organization to be successful, I have to want the people that make it to be successful. I want you to be successful. And that doesn't necessarily mean directly with the organization. I want you to be happy. I want you to feel authentic. I want you to feel good about yourself and feel good about what you're doing, because I think that if I encourage you to be the best version of yourself, that will then translate into your job, and you will do a good job at your job, and you will take pride in your work. And you know what I mean? It'll be more authentic like that. So it's really cool to see that a lot of other leadership, in my opinion, especially around our age group, takes that same approach. And I hope that's something we continue to see. You know?
And I feel like all businesses start out with that intent, like the corporation.
Oh, sure.
They start out with that intent, but then guess what comes in? Money. And things fucking change because they want more of it. Yeah. And I think that's
it's hard. It's really hard. With growth, every time you grow, you have to toe the line to somebody. Like even if you're the leader of your organization, there's still somebody you have to answer to for something, whether it's sponsors, the board, shareholders. Depending on that pressure and that stress, your focus could change, and that's very scary. But if you don't have good people around you that can keep you honest and check you if you say the wrong thing, because you're a human being, you're going to make a wrong decision. If you don't have those people, then how do you know that you're doing the wrong things? Yeah. You don't. Yep. You know what I mean? It's hard because you need somebody to check you. So let's get into some groupthink case studies. So I just want to talk about some of the most famous examples of groupthink, what happened, why it's an example of groupthink, what could have been done differently. Number one, Pearl Harbor. So the attack on Pearl Harbor is an excellent example of groupthink. Despite the interception of Japanese messages, U.S. naval officers based in Hawaii did not seriously take warnings from Washington about a potential offensive attack somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. The officers thought that the Japanese would not dare to attack the United States. Nobody challenged the idea and instead rationalized why an attack was unlikely to happen. Even though Washington shared intercepted Japanese messages, the officers were still sure that the Japanese wouldn't dare attack. Key word there, officers. They disregarded the possibility due to overconfidence in wanting to maintain conformity, even though it was a realistic threat. And unfortunately, 2,403 Americans died as a result of that decision. The Bay of Pigs invasion. In 1961, John F. Kennedy and his advisors planned the Bay of Pigs invasion to achieve a swift overthrow of Fidel Castro's regime. The decision makers became victims of the illusion of invulnerability, hoping Cubans would rise to support them. Another driver was inherent morality, thinking this invasion was liberating Cuba from communism. Historian Arthur Schlesinger strongly objected to this approach. However, he practiced self-censorship, remained silent during the decision-making process. The result of groupthink in the Bay of Pigs invasion was a poorly planned and executed operation. The invasion force was vastly outnumbered, and this led to a quick defeat and an embarrassment for the United States. So again, it's that thought process, I guess, similar to Avatar or like the colonization of America, where it's like we come in and we're like, these guys are going to love us. Like we got dollar generals, like we got dinosaurs, like fucking, we're here. We're here to save you. And everybody's like, can you like go away? Like if you think about if somebody came into your house and was like, hey guys, here to save you. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you're like just watching TV. You're like, dude, can you fucking shut up?
You see, this is another episode, but I have like ideas on that. Like I could totally go off on a tangent on that.
What do you mean?
About
the Bay
like,
Pigs?
No. About like how growing up, learning things throughout history, how if it's not democracy, how quickly did you learn that a different style of government is wrong and demonized? Even though, and they unfortunately they only take what they teach you is the examples that like are the extreme examples. So for example, dictatorship, communism, right? Things of that nature, socialism. What do you get? Karl Marx, right? You get like Hitler, like, and the ideas that they took, the principle I see, like Karl Marx was just a poor gentleman who wanted equal, right? But they took, not so much Karl Marx, the more of the leaders, they took these ideas and went to the extreme and ran with it.
Well, yeah, you have that in any ideology where you have these people that are just radical.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? And they take a concept that has potential and they just completely hijack it and sway it to fit whatever their narrative is, which is going to make me, as a person that's trying to like just rationalize and make good decisions, look at that and be like, this motherfucker's crazy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Space shuttle, the Challenger space shuttle disaster. This was another tragic one. Engineers at NASA were hesitant to voice concerns about the O-ring's performance in cold weather due to pressure from superiors to launch on schedule, which contributed to the fatal accident that killed the astronauts aboard the Challenger in front of all of America
and a teacher.
The world. And the teacher was in that too.
Yeah, she was not an astronaut at all.
Yeah,
that's so sad.
Yeah, and again,
God.
To know that there's a piece of equipment and you're like, I don't know if that's going to work, but you know what? We got to launch in like 2 days, so we're going to do it anyway. Again, it's that pressure of that deadline, that timeline that you're like, okay, well, like we have to get this done so fast, that makes you completely suspend your logic in being rational about this situation to say, no, we have to hurry up and get this done. Even though it sucks, even though it could kill these people, maybe, not sure, but we're going to take that chance because we have to get this done in 2 days or whatever the case may be.
And you know what's crazy since you just said that? Like, to what end, right? Why couldn't they have...
That happens all the time. Think about all of the recalls on any vehicle ever. Like, I assume that's a similar thing where they're like, listen, we got to crank out 8,000 F-150s or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden there's a recall because we had to get this many vehicles out in this amount of time. And when you put pressure on numbers and you say we have to get this much produced, there's going to be issues somewhere. The quality is going to go down at some point. Like, and you're going to start seeing that, and it could cause something like in the Challenger space shuttle disaster that is catastrophic.
Yeah.
Another example, this one hurts. 2003 Iraq War. The Bush administration, their decision to invade Iraq was based on weapons of mass destruction. I don't know. You didn't see it. You definitely wouldn't see any now.
No, I wouldn't see any now.
You wouldn't see any now.
I don't think there was. I don't think there was weapons of mass. Do I think that there's some? Do countries have weapons of mass destruction? Yeah, but was it to the level of they led us to believe to where we should invade a country for over 20 years? No.
It's odd. It's weird. And again, when you look back at history and the power vacuums that are created when you go into an area and you think that, and they can be terrible dictators that are doing terrible things. And then a group goes in there, the U.S., whoever, and they get rid of that dictator, and then it creates a power vacuum, and and then it's the same problem, or worse, or you have a worse group of people. Treaty of Versailles and after World War I led to the rise of the Nazi Party. You had what happened with ISIS, in Iraq after Saddam Hussein was gotten out of there. It just was killed and removed. I mean. It can be
the rise of the Taliban as well after Desert Storm.
Rise of the Taliban, like it's those power vacuums. They create significant issues. So I mean, the 2003 Iraq War, another example of groupthink.
Yes, sir.
The Salem witch trials, very popular one. This historical event provides an excellent groupthink definition and explanation. The Salem witch trials are also a fantastic example of mass hysteria. So from February 1692 to May 1693, the town of Salem, Massachusetts, charged more than 200 people with witchcraft. Of these people, 20 were later executed. It's interesting to note how the community reached a consensus based on almost no evidence.
Yeah.
People don't do that ever. You know what I mean? It's like... That lady's smart. We should kill her.
She's a witch.
Holy shit, dude. Again, terrifying. A group of people that's just like, no, we got to get rid of this person and just do it. Like, it's just, oh, man.
That makes me think, like, what could you have had? Like, could you imagine if you, like, farted and it smelled weird? You're like, oh, witch.
Yeah. Or you farted and it didn't smell. You're like, witch. Killer. You're like, what?
And everybody, and that's the thing. You're like, what? But everybody's like, yeah.
Everybody's like, yep.
Grab the torches and pitchforks.
Hell yeah. Yeah. You don't smell anything? That's fucking weird.
Weirdo.
Kill this witch.
Magic.
It's terrible. The ice bucket challenge, another one. This one isn't a negative so much one. When what started out as a challenge to bring awareness to the motor neuron disease, ALS, soon spiraled into an example of groupthink. In the challenge, participants dumped a bucket of ice water over their heads and uploaded the video to social media. And it just spread like wildfire to the point where a lot of people, in my opinion, weren't entirely sure of like what it was for or whatever. They're just doing it to be a part of it. Which,
guilty.
For the sake of, me too. For the sake of spreading awareness, I mean, you can argue, is that necessarily a terrible thing? I mean, sometimes not all groupthink examples are bad.
No.
Especially if it spreads awareness for something that needs more of a spotlight on it. Like ALS.
I agree.
And that cancel culture is another blatant, obvious example of groupthink. This phenomenon embodies the worst aspects of this concept, including the total belief that the group is in the right. 100% for sure. There's no way that the group is not right. All it takes is one accusation, and an unthinking lynch mob will descend upon you. Victims of cancel culture are convicted without trial and may have their careers, lives, and families destroyed. And worst of all, there's almost nothing that they can do about it. And yes, there are people who genuinely deserve cancellation, but there are also people that just get thrown into it and are innocent victims.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when just somebody throws whatever label out there and says Brad is a blank, and now everybody's like, yep, and everybody just jumps on it, and then all of a sudden you're the villain and you didn't even do anything.
And I think the example, we talked about this last night, the example with the bakery that made a cake for
that refused to make a cake
or that refused to make a cake for a gay couple. Well, that's wrong, right? Obviously, but they got canceled.
Yeah.
At least I think so.
I believe they did. My thought is that the court of public opinion, for the most part, should be educated enough to make those decisions for themselves. Like if you know that an organization does not support gay people, then I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, all right, I'm just not going to go there. I am an advocate of voting with my dollars. If I hear of an actor, actress, whatever, that has something that says something that I don't personally believe in, and they're just using their platform to be able to spread whatever hate, vitriol, whatever their message is, that if I really, really have a staunch disagreement with it, then I don't pay for their movies. I don't pay for their stuff. I don't support them at all. I vote with my dollars.
You're a fucking unicorn, dude.
I will. Because that's the one right you have. That's the one thing you can do. If you don't agree with something, then vote with your dollars. That's the most powerful way to do that. Because in my opinion, especially when it comes to a lot of people that are in Hollywood or whatever the case may be, if they didn't have the money, would they still have their opinion? I'm not sure. But because they have all the money in the world, they think that they have all the power in the world. They can do whatever they want, say whatever they want. It becomes problematic. So I always think you got to vote with your dollars.
That's fair.
And then the last example, and this is one that like a lot of people have taken and made a lot of jokes about and stuff, which I get to a degree, sort of, but like, fuck me, it's just a tragic thing. And that's the Ocean Gate Titan submersible explosion. So the primary issue with the Ocean Gate Titan submersible implosion was believed to be a catastrophic failure of its hull, most likely due to flaws in its carbon fiber composite design, which could not withstand the immense pressure at the depth of the Titanic wreck, leading to a sudden inward collapse under the extreme water pressure. Concerns about the design and construction of the submersible, including potential cost-cutting measures, were raised by experts prior to the incident. And unfortunately, it resulted in 5 people losing their lives. So it's like, there's one thing about being charismatic. There's one thing about wanting to do something big, life-changing, whatever. But when you become so jaded by that, when you become so lost in that goal that you can't see the real issues, dude, a father and his son died in that thing. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it happened so fast. And like, you have to listen to your gut. I have to imagine, man, because I feel that to a degree. Like sometimes when you get on a plane for a split second, as you get on the plane, you're like, all right, I hope everything's fine. Like if I was to get in something like that, a little tiny submersible, oh my God, you can't tell me your gut is not going like, yo, dude, you do not need to be in here right now.
Not only was it a tiny submersible, wasn't it controlled by like a Super Nintendo controller?
It was some sort of gaming controller. Yeah.
Like a Pong controller or something?
There were questions that were brought up about several things in relation to the construction of that.
Yeah.
That just didn't seem like it would be able to withstand going to that depth. But the drive, and that guy who built that, I think he was a billionaire, maybe, I could be wrong. He had plenty of money. I assume you have that money because you were successful with something in your life. I assume that you were pretty smart at some points in your life to get to where you're at to make that decision. But again, maybe you're surrounded by too many yes men. Maybe because you got the dedication, that timeline in front of you.
Yep.
Whatever the case may be, they made that decision and none of them are around anymore.
Blinded by money, right? He became a billionaire somehow, like you said.
Blinded by money. That's right. So you didn't even catch that one. Sorry.
I didn't.
Go ahead.
But no, like for real, think about it. Dude's a billionaire. He's like, hey, I can get $250,000 out of these people. That's a quick $1 million right there. Who cares if it's safe? I'm making $1 million.
Well, that, and then also you overestimate your own humanity. Maybe not humanity, but just because you think, oh, I have all this money, I can't die. Like, nah, man.
Surprise.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what the Indian guy in Jurassic World thought.
Mm-hmm. On the helicopter.
Yep. Thought he could fly helicopters. And he introduced the 2 other helicopter pilots, and they're both like Iraq vets or whatever, that they both immediately get killed.
Yep.
I'm like, fuck. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just going to bring up Jurassic Park.
That's fine.
As much as I can.
I'm not even a little bit mad.
Why do you and also, before I ask this question, there are so many other examples of groupthink. When you listen to these different things, think about all the other, any cult ever. Jim Jones, any of those cults, that's what it is.
Sure.
The cult, Jim Jones, and I don't have the notes in front of me for this, so I'm kind of talking from what I remember from a documentary or two that I think I watched about it. But like, he had his cult, and it was in America, and then he was like, hey guys, we're going to go to another country, and we're going to have our group there. And everybody was like, okay. And they all picked up, went down there slowly, little by little. Like, are you familiar with Jim Jones?
Is this like the
Kool-Aid guy?
Yes.
Essentially.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Who made everybody drink the Kool-Aid with the poison in it. And everybody fucking died. And everybody just went along with it. And again, the most terrifying thing about that is to think that you're just trapped in that. And inside your head, your gut, something is telling you, stop, don't do this. This is not a good idea. Do not do this. But you're doing it anyway out of conformity. That's terrifying. Terrifying.
That's scary.
Why do you think it's so hard to break groupthink when you're in it?
I think it's so hard to break groupthink because at least I can speak for myself. I've spent people don't want to be alone. right? They just want other people. We're human beings. It is in our DNA.
Right.
And like biologically, we are meant to interact. We are a social species.
Right.
So I think even though I don't agree 100% with what you're saying, you're accepting me into your group and I'm a part of a group now and I feel like I belong. And sure, at the beginning, do I agree a little bit? Is it wrong? Do I think it's wrong? Yeah. But I think as time goes on, that thought becomes, well, no, this isn't wrong.
Right.
This is right.
Yeah, you start believing it.
So I think that's the problem is your mindset, like you have the initial, like, this is not wrong, but I feel accepted.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been longing for my entire life. And it feels good. And then by the time you get to the point where it's like too late, if you will, in some cases, for example, Nazi Germany or like the submarine, it's too late and it's unfortunate. And it's like, you can't go back. Otherwise, that's your life in some cases.
Yes. And this is the second podcast in a row, second episode in a row, I have brought up this documentary, but I will do it again. I'd bring it up every episode because it's amazing. Accidental Courtesy, Daryl Davis, Race in America, is about Daryl Davis, who was, I believe, a blues. He's a musician, guitarist, and phenomenal guitarist, played with all of these amazing acts that everybody's familiar with. A lot of people would be familiar with, especially during the time. And he's a black man. And he got, I don't know how many people from the KKK to quit the KKK by just talking to him. Like, that was his whole thing. He wasn't making them be on a medication or talk to a therapist, anything. He was just like, hey, dude, here's who I am. And he would talk to him. And then after so many times of talking to Daryl Davis, these guys that were in insanely high positions in the KKK were like, shit, maybe black people are pretty cool. Like, they were like, here. Then they turned in their uniforms to him because, again, not condoning any of the destructive behavior, but they were raised in an environment where everybody was like, you need to think this about these people. And so they just constantly were surrounded by that. And they were living in this little echo chamber. So they just continued to think that for so long. And then what is their leadership doing? Don't even talk to those people. Don't talk to them. Why? Because if you do, you're going to realize, oh shit, they're pretty cool. They're the same as us. Like, why would you keep me from doing that? And so excellent perspective on like groupthink. And it also brings up, why it's so hard to break out of it. How do you know that you're in it? Sometimes you don't. If that's your environment, how do you know that what you believe in is right unless you can be open-minded enough to understand that you might be wrong about stuff? You just continue to make the best decision you can with the information you got. That's what you have to continue to do. You know what I mean?
I agree. And I think the best way to combat groupthink is experience, life experience. People need to realize that if you grew up in small town USA, there's more. First of all, there's more to just the country than small town USA.
Yeah.
And guess what? There's more to the world than just USA. Like, open your mind a little bit because, like, I have such a hard time when Americans travel. Like we talked about it, when Americans travel. My buddy, for example, he lives in Okinawa, Japan. He said that there was one of his American buddies spearfishes. You need a license. You need, right? So as a business, my buddy, he takes guys on charters and he will take them out spearfishing, doing anything. But you have to be licensed because in Japan, it's a very serious deal. Like, they take it seriously, right?
Right.
He was telling me his buddy was like, oh, no, I'm American. I ain't going to get caught. Just do it. Well, no, dude. And then you get mad because you get thrown in Japanese prison and have to eat rice and bread for 21 days because you can't abide by simple laws and rules because the American way, I'm just going to do whatever I want.
Right. Different cultures.
You can't do that. And I feel like by traveling and by reading and by you're not going against your nation by learning about other countries. You're not doing that. But you're making yourself an overall well-rounded person because now instead of seeing somebody who is not from America come to America, and when they have an accent, I'm not like, oh, you sound funny, say this. I have a conversation with them and I learn their backgrounds and their story. And and that's how you grow as a society, as a people.
Culture.
That's, I don't know, man. And it's
immersing yourself in any other culture is one of the most, in my opinion, beneficial things you can do from a growth perspective. And one of the most beneficial things I think you can do for your kids is to show them a different culture. So like, I've been invited to quinceañeras before. And like to be immersed in a culture doing something that their culture does is just one of the coolest things ever. It's just like, holy shit.
Japan, being in Japan, like when they do the parades with like the dragon and the drums. It's fucking awesome.
Anything like that. When I was in Afghanistan, we shared a base. I was in Afghanistan. I was in Bagram. I was at Bagram Air Base. We were either coming into country or leaving country. But the Jordanian army was there, and the Jordanian army was celebrating a bachelor party for one of the guys who was going to be getting married soon. They invited us to go like celebrate with them, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, dude!" Awesome. Like it was cool as hell.
Yeah,
it's cool to see other cultures doing what other cultures do, and it's nice to immerse yourself in that and understand it's okay that I have a small understanding of this world.
Yeah,
like you need to be aware of how little you know about everything there is to know. That will keep you humble. That will allow you to be open-minded and allow you to have those conversations with those other people to learn more about the world that you know, instead of being mad that it's not like the world that you know.
And you know what's crazy? I just thought of this, dude. Ultimate groupthink. The American mindset. We're number one.
That's a lot of countries. A lot of countries have that nationalist. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right, you know what I mean? Where it's like, our country is the best.
Yeah.
So I was on a multinational contract. And I'll back up to say, right, wrong, or indifference, like supporting your sports team. Like, this is where we're at, bro. I'm fucking American. I'm going to be proud of that.
Of course.
So I was in Afghanistan on a multinational contract with the DOD. And there were Greeks, South Africans, Brits, Aussies, Kiwis, from New Zealand. Trying to think of who else. I think that was about it. But all these different all these different cultures, and we're all on the same contract from all these different countries. My driver was from Greece, okay? Very proud Greek, and he was in the Greek Special Forces. So like him and I were in a truck all the time and running missions and stuff, had a great relationship, and we would always argue over whose country was better.
Nice.
Like fucking around, and I would make him so angry. I have a patch on my wall up here that says Malacca.
Yeah.
And that was because of him, because Malacca is Greek for asshole. He would call me that all the time. And so I got a tab, like a Ranger tab made that said Malacca, and I put it on my uniform whenever I would ride with him so he would see it. Because he would tell me about how like everything was invented in Greece, and just to fuck with him, be like, nope, everything was invented in America. And like the Olympics were on, and I was like, bro, and I told him this, and I remember, and he got, I think, a little actually pissed.
Yeah.
I told him that the marathon started in Detroit when somebody's car broke down 26 miles away from a marathon gas station. And then we got marathons, and we started the Olympics. I was like, everything came from America. I would just do that
just
to fuck
piss
with
him off.
He was proud of his country because so much stuff has come out of his country.
Absolutely.
Regardless of the country that you come from, your country, and I'm sure every country has something that they've had to offer the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're going to be proud of that thing, and that's great. You know what I mean? To a degree, as long as it doesn't become destructive.
Yep.
But where do you see groupthink in society outside of the military?
Politics,
always,
schools,
always politics. Politics is the biggest one.
Yeah,
and that's why I don't like really talking politics. We should be free to talk about things.
Yep,
sure, but understand that freedom of speech doesn't equal freedom of consequence from that speech.
Correct.
But I also understand why for a very long time people were like, don't talk about politics. Because of the phenomenon of groupthink, because so many people get swept into the wave of whatever label you choose. Mm-hmm. And then when they do that, they start suspending any potential opposition that you might have to any of their points. And I'm not saying that any specific ideology is 100% right. I think we all have something to learn from everybody else. But if you're on the side that's telling me to not talk to whatever people or to not question whatever, I am not going to side with you because of that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I feel like I'm educated enough to have a conversation with whoever. Again, take the bakery that wouldn't sell the cake to the gay couple. Mm-hmm. It's like, me personally, I feel like I'm educated enough that if I heard that, I'd be like, cool, not going to fucking go there. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can make that decision
Sure.
on my own, I think. But yeah, how do you think social media encourages or reinforces groupthink?
Oh my God,
It makes
dude.
it a lot
It-
worse.
oh yeah.
And then you have the bots that I think are out there.
The bots.
And you know the bots are out there because you read these comments and you're like, this has to be one of the dumbest people ever to say this in this context, in this thread. And then you click on their profile. They got like 2 friends.
Yep.
It's in 2 different languages. And you're like,
well, dude, I think that's got to be done on purpose then.
probably, because no matter how crazy, like, case in point, I will be looking at a post on social media and it could be about an NBA game. It could be about the Chicago Bulls.
Yep.
Okay. And somebody underneath it is like, this is why Trump's destroying America. And then someone underneath that comments, fuck you. And I'm like, dude, this was a comment about a Bulls Pistons game. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
And now it just turned into this thing where these people are just arguing with each other about nothing. Like,
that just reminded me of another example of groupthink that is in everyday stuff that isn't the military.
Yep.
Being a Chicago sports fan.
No, yes and no, because we're all just like, there's always next year.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
but how many
Being
years?
a Bears fan is some groupthink, because we're just like, no, guys, no, we made some changes this year. We got a new quarterback.
You want me to-
we're going to be great. And
You want me to change your mind real quick?
Yeah.
With 2 words? Double doink.
Yeah, I felt for that dude, man. But yeah, being a Chicago sports fan, being a sports fan in general, and being a sports fan has all of the ability and possibility to be a really amazing, fun, immersive experience.
Yep.
But because of that groupthink, there are fights. People kill people over sporting events.
A game.
Again,
A game.
the Super Bowl. I got to tell you, the Eagles seem like a really awesome team. Like, when you hear stories about, like, they seem like they have a cast of characters, great talent. Like, it reminds me of, the Bulls when they had Jordan and Rodman and Pippen, or the 85 Bears, or the Blackhawks when they were going on their Stanley Cup, their cup, what was it? Three Stanley Cups
In like 5 years or whatever. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, they had a cast. They had like a team. You know what I mean? And you're watching, you're like, man, this is awesome. But then they win the Super Bowl, and like Philadelphia just gets destroyed. And you're like, holy shit, dude! Like, you're out there, like, we're celebrating the victory of our sports team. You go flip that car. I'm gonna pull that sign out of the ground. It's like, yo, wait, what are we doing?
Why are we doing this?
And then you just see the one person start it, and you're like, okay. And that brings up an example for me. Like, I've had to deal with unruly groups, especially when I was in the military. I was in Afghanistan, and I was at a governor's compound, and we were doing some sort of security mission. We pull in with MRAPs and Humvees. We pull into the gate, and the gate and the wall around the governor's compound is like 8 to 10 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
So we get in to, this is a double example of groupthink. So we get into the governor's compound. We all circle our vehicles, and we have guys in the governor's compound conducting the mission. I'm in the vehicle with my gunner. I'm driving, and my gunner's in the turret, and I'm in a Humvee. So we get intel that there is a group of military-age males, like 200 of them, that are making their way towards the governor's compound. And we're like, neat. So my platoon sergeant takes 2 of our guys. One of them was not technically our DDM. He might have had an M14. I can't remember, but put him on the rooftop so we had the best vision of like what was going on around us, so we could see this group of people coming to us, right? So this group of 200, whatever, finally get to the governor's compound, and they're outside the wall, and we're like, oh man, like, we don't know what's going to happen. The anticipation is a lot sometimes, right? And we're like, we don't know what way this is going to go, but we have to maintain our military bearing, our posture. We're just let them know, hey, don't mess with us, but leave us alone. We'll leave you alone. And then one rock comes over the wall, thrown by one of those guys into the compound. And right after that, just a wave of rocks start coming over that 8-foot wall, pelting us. There's an MRAP in front of me. There's a dude sitting in the turret named, I'm not going to say his name, but he gets hit in the face by one of those rocks. He gets pulled down by his driver. His driver and him, and I think he had one other guy in the back of the vehicle, pulled him down. I grab my gunner because I'm in a Humvee. He's right there next to me. I pull him down and we're just like covering each other up.
Yeah.
And there's just rocks coming down everywhere because it just took that first rock. The second that first rock came over, everything followed.
Yeah.
And then what was crazy about that incident is that it was covered by a news station. I don't remember which one. And it was featured on the news that night because we went back to the base and we were working out in the gym and we had TVs up in the gym and they showed that event. But what they showed was not the 200 military-age males. They showed the military, the United States military, with their aggressive posture, just having two guys up on that roof with rifles. And then they showed some kids, some local kids.
Oh, that is so fucked.
Yeah.
That is so fucked.
Yeah, buddy. And we're watching that. I'm in there with one of the other gunners, and we're just like, dude, what kind of Twilight Zone type shit, like type world are we living in?
That is so fucked.
So it's crazy.
That's nuts, dude.
And also, too, like, groupthink in the military, there was another incident where I think I could have been killed potentially because of groupthink had it not been for our leadership. So I think a lot of groupthink stems from poor leadership. And in the military, if you're unfamiliar, the way that the structure of a platoon typically works is you have an officer, a lieutenant, and that officer is typically college taught.
I would say fresh out the schoolhouse.
Like book smart,
Yep.
which has a place, right? It definitely has a place. Some of those officers might be prior enlisted. Those are fucking unicorns. But a lot of the time, it's somebody that came out of college, right? And then you have your enlisted, your platoon sergeant.
Yep.
Typically, your platoon sergeant could also be college educated or whatever, but usually that platoon sergeant like fought their way through the ranks.
They seen some shit.
Like they earned it through experience.
Yep.
They earned that position. And so from a leadership perspective, you have a book smart person, that's the officer, the platoon leader, and then you have your experienced person who is the platoon sergeant. And together they make the best decisions for the platoon based on the mission, right? So in this particular case, I was in Afghanistan. We had gone to do a security mission in some sub-valley. And it was like pretty much one main road in, and then that one same main road out. So on this particular mission, we take the main road in. We conduct our mission. We're there most of the day. We are leaving. And on our way out, we see that same main road that we just took in now had piles of rocks all over the road, making it impassable.
Yeah.
And then right next to that main road, there was this little like goat trail. And this little goat trail that was untouched. Okay. I am in the first vehicle. I'm in the turret of the first vehicle. We're in an MRAP. The last vehicle is our lieutenant. And the lieutenant goes, Falcon 26 or Falcon 27, go ahead and take the road to the right. Take the goat trail to the right. Immediately in that moment, everybody in the vehicle, like our stomachs went, I don't know, sir. Now, here's the thing. My driver, his last name was Shuri. Shuri was the driver. Typically, he was the gunner, and typically I was the driver, but for this mission, for whatever reason, we swap spots. So Shuri is typical E4. Like, he's like listening to his leadership. So he's like, and he's looking over at the platoon sergeant because we were in the platoon sergeant's vehicle. Platoon sergeant sitting in the TC front right seat. Shuri's driving. I'm up in the turret. And he's like looking over at our platoon sergeant, who was at the time a police officer in Tinley Park when he was back home. And awesome dude, very straight edge, but great dude, good leader. And his name is Sergeant Ringhofer. And Sergeant Ringhofer was like, Shuri, I want you to drive through their fucking fields. And Shuri then takes the MRAP, and instead of taking the goat trail to the right, he starts driving through the field to the left, driving over the locals' crops, which are understandably so probably going to anger the locals because they're driving over their crops. The lieutenant starts calling up, Falcon 27, Falcon 27, get the hell out of the field, take the goat trail to the right. And so Shuri's like, he doesn't know what to do because his platoon sergeant's telling him one thing.
Yeah.
Platoon leader's saying something else. And Shuri Sergeant Ringhofer keeps saying, Shuri, Just drive through their fucking fields. I don't care what the lieutenant says. Drive through their fields. So we start driving through their fields. Right after the last vehicle starts to pass that goat trail, we start getting hit from a mountain that was mountaintop that was right next to that goat trail. We start taking small arms fire and all that bullshit.
Yep.
And if we would have taken the goat trail to the right, that would have put us in a way worse position for a complex attack. And we don't know if there was IEDs over there. We have no idea what was going on.
Yep.
But it's very clear that we could have gotten pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
And thankfully, because of how it all worked out, we were able to return fire, get out of there with no casualties. If we would have listened to the LT at that point, dude, who knows what would have happened? Now, and the LT's decision is coming from the perspective of we don't want to anger the locals. Mm-hmm. We don't want to ruin their crops. But it was a life or death situation, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, God, situations like that. Like, if you're a grunt, I feel like a lot of grunts out there are like, yeah, I got a similar situation with where like they almost got you killed. They told you to do some dumb shit. You know what I mean?
I get the whole respecting the rank thing.
Yeah.
But thank God that sergeant was in the truck.
Dude. And
especially the lead truck, because otherwise you fuck, dude.
There's plenty of lieutenants that are good. I'm not saying that either, but like in this one particular situation, thankfully, we had that platoon sergeant there to get us out of there. Dude. So groupthink, man, it can be, as we had mentioned, it can be life or death.
Yeah.
So, and then any other high profile examples that are like recently, or is like the whole Diddy thing.
Yeah.
Because again, and I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're familiar, the artist Diddy, seems like he was having a lot of parties where he was doing a lot of super inappropriate, illegal, terrible stuff, some involving kids, a lot of stuff not involving consent at all terrible, all super, super terrible. And there are quite a bit of other famous people that were tied to being at these events.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very hard time believing that like this was happening and like nobody else knew about it.
Oh yeah.
I have to imagine a decent amount of the Hollywood community had an idea of what the hell was going on.
Yep.
But nobody says anything until now.
Yeah. And you know, it's crazy. It was a joke because I've seen a lot of interviews with like a lot of celebrities that did go to Diddy's parties.
Yeah.
And they joking were like, oh, well, what happens at Diddy's party? Like, we don't talk about Diddy's parties.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, wait a minute, why?
Right.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Because like, just historically speaking, like a party at the Playboy Mansion, like people talked about that. I feel like I've never been, obviously, but I feel like people like that, like it was on TV. Remember that show, like The Girl Next Door? Well, yeah, but I mean, it's like, wait a second, you get all these celebrities and you're not allowed to talk about it?
Yeah. And so again, from a groupthink perspective, are you afraid of losing your job? Are you afraid of being kicked out of Hollywood?
Yeah.
Are you afraid they're going to make you look crazy?
Like blacklisted, and that's fucking scary because that's like their livelihood, dude. So now you have, deep down, you know that this is fucking wrong, that this is wrong. But if I say something, my entire life is going to be crumbled.
Yeah.
Potentially.
There were, I mean, at the start of the Me Too movement, inherently, there were a lot of female actresses that were forced to do terrible things for the sake of being successful. And when, and it happened to male actors too, and then when they said something about it, they were like vilified and made to seem like they were the crazy ones.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's a terrible, terrible machine, but you have to trust your gut. You have to trust your gut. And I understand that if it means that you could be losing so much by doing what you think is right, then maybe you shouldn't be in that environment in the first place.
Fucking so be it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know it's easier said than done, but still, it's just, I hate to think about it. So how to break free from groupthink. You have to identify the signs. So some of the signs: pressure to conform, censorship of opposing views, overconfidence in decisions, stuff that we already talked about. Like if somebody is completely censoring the opposing views, regardless of how simple it may seem,
mm-hmm.
I'm going to feel weird about that.
Yeah.
Because like, again, give me the ability to like look at this situation and come to my own conclusion, because otherwise I'm just going with what you say. And what if I don't trust you? You know what I mean? So censoring opposing views, I understand it's very hard. It's very, very hard to think about allowing some of these people who may have very hateful, terrible things to say say them. But I have to trust that people eventually are going to get to the point where we have leadership good enough to understand that, hey, that person's an idiot. That person's spewing hate. We don't need to support. I'm not going to support that person. Are you? And you're like, no, I know about that person. I'm not going to support that person. Like, you make your decision.
Yeah.
You make your decision. And if my decision and your decision are different, then I at least will respect that, as long as it doesn't involve hurting or doing anything else terrible to anybody else. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Tools for resilience. So one, think about creating a smaller group if you're worried about dealing with groupthink or falling into that trap. Groupthink is often a large group problem, so breaking up groups can encourage more active listening. Number two, bring in a devil's advocate. So when everyone seems to quickly agree, designate a team member to play the role of the devil's advocate. Challenge assumptions, ideas. If you're a man, get married. Just get married. You got a devil's advocate with you all the time. Come up with an idea, and you will have all of the reasons why you shouldn't do that.
And then you'll quickly learn that most of the ideas you have are wrong.
You are very stupid for even thinking them.
Yep. You are so wrong that everything else just seems right.
Like, I used to get annoyed. There's two types of people, and I'm talking from a position of like being in a leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
When people are playing devil's advocate, you're going to have, and I've talked to other like nonprofit leaders and stuff about this too. It's like, you're going to have those people that are just going to snipe and be devil's advocate, but aren't going to like help with anything ever. They're just like talking shit to talk shit and just be an asshole. That's different. I don't really like those people. That's not helpful. But if you're playing devil's advocate, like one of my best friends, his name is Packy. He's on our board of directors. He'll always play devil's advocate with me from a very educated perspective. If he doesn't know if he agrees with something that I'm saying, like if I say something and he's like, well, I don't know about doing this because, and he'll have a reason, and then he'll have an idea on what we could do differently. That is extremely helpful.
Yeah.
It is so invaluable to have in your organization, in your home, in everything. Like, to have that person that's like, well, it might not be that. Let me challenge your idea with this to see how strong your idea really is.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing.
No.
We have to learn how to be more accepting of that.
I think the term challenge too is because it feels like if when I hear challenge, like if I came at you with an idea and you challenge my idea, instantly I feel like I have to like, all right, gloves up, bro. Like, let's go.
Right.
So maybe
you're
like
challenging me now, and I have to get defensive about it.
And now because you're getting defensive, my only reaction naturally as a human being, well, now I have to get defensive. And if you raise your tone or change your tone, well, fuck you, dude. Now I'm changing my tone. I'm yelling at you, and I don't care what you have to say at this point.
Right.
So I think word choice too, and what you call something is huge.
Well, you have to be very tactful.
Absolutely, but like, I don't mean, but I feel. The word, again, for me, the word challenge, maybe that's not the best. Maybe find a synonym, And I don't mean you like you specifically. I just mean in general. So maybe people feel like, well, you're not trying to challenge me because when you challenge me, that means I have to defend myself.
See, I like the idea of being challenged. I love a challenge. I love being a private investigator. I married a redhead. Like, I don't mind. I don't mind it. I love a challenge. Like, I appreciate a challenge. And again, it's going to make me better. I know it's going to make me better. That's my approach to it. I look at the festival we do, Heroes, Hogs, and Hot Rods, right? The whole reason why I think it has been successful up until this point is because the committee that makes up Triple H is made up of people that are very good at their specific event. And then we get together and we talk about how we're going to make this work. And then we hash out our ideas. And as the person that is like over the entire festival, there are times where I want to do something a certain way, but because I don't understand the minutia of how a car show needs to be ran or done or whatever, the guys from the car show were like, hey man, I don't think that's going to work. I think we should do it like this, like that, whatever. I got to go with what they say because they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And if I want the best thing for the overall mission, I got to go with the subject matter experts. I got to trust them. And like, trust is so important to me in all of my relationships.
Yeah.
Because if I don't trust you, then whatever you say, it's not that it doesn't matter, but it's like, I don't know how to take it because I don't trust you. So if I trust you, it's very easy for me to just go with whatever you say because I already trust you as a person. It makes it a bit easier, especially if you're challenging me, because I trust you enough to know that if you are challenging my idea, you have a good reason to. You're not doing it to be an asshole. You're doing it because you see it from a different perspective, and you're worried that we're not going to accomplish the overall mission if we do it the way I think we should do it. So you're challenging me, which is an extremely beneficial thing, I think.
Yeah.
Also, seeking external input. What, you got a thought?
No, I was just,
sorry.
I didn't realize how close I was to the
No, you're good.
to the mic.
Seeking external input, asking for feedback from external experts and stakeholders, always a good idea. In line with that wasn't written in here, but like find a mentor.
Yeah.
Find somebody that you trust, again, that is successful and doing things in line with what you want to do, and talk to them about some of the things you want to do. There have been, thankfully, I have some really amazing mentors in my life that I have proposed what I think about a certain idea or how I'm taking the organization, and they'll push back with very good experience and reason, and it helps me make a much better decision, and it's not necessarily what I wanted to do. And also raise awareness. Educate your team about groupthink and discuss the possibility of its occurrence in different settings. Encourage open dialogue. Encourage diverse viewpoints. Understand it's going to be uncomfortable. Understand that to get from point A to point B is going to take longer when you're taking everybody's opinions into consideration, but you can't get down about that. You have to understand that it is for the overall benefit of the organization. Now, there are going to be times where there is a timeline and you have to meet that timeline, and that's crucial and that's difficult, and decisions have to be made. I get that. But if you can encourage open dialogue, encourage having a diverse viewpoints, I think you're making the best decision you can for the group as a whole, you know. Have you experienced, other than what we've talked about, any other incidents or situations where there was groupthink in the military? So what did it look like?
In the military?
Yeah. That we didn't talk about already.
Yes. Coming from a food service perspective.
Yeah.
And the way that just nutrition and food as a whole that not just the Marine Corps, but the military looks at, right? So I don't know if the Army had, but they had these cards where it's like green, yellow, red, right? Green is a good choice, yellow, not so good, red. I'm talking like as far as like nutrition.
Bases. Yeah.
I think with that, that's a very toxic thing, because you're now teaching me that you're putting a label on food that food is good and bad, which is not, there's no such thing as good food and bad food. That doesn't exist. I
don't know. I feel like using an Oreo to eat Nutella out of the jar.
Is that a good decision? No. Is it a healthy?
That's not how I feel.
Is it a healthy food? No. There's healthy foods and less healthy foods.
Protein, Nutella,
exactly.
Hazelnuts. So
exactly.
That's got to be good.
But like for real, there's like,
I know.
there's yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But there's, you know what I mean? There's really healthy foods. There's less healthy foods. But you're not less of a person if you have a small bowl of ice cream.
Unless you're in the military, you pick up that bowl of ice cream, and God forbid, if you're
the military though,
if you're getting taped.
Yeah,
somebody is gonna yell or throw something at you from across the fucking DFAC.
Bro, I had to eat in a bubble because it was like that constant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like, what is that teaching us? Like, I have to eat this way for the rest of my life, otherwise I'm a fat piece of shit.
It's just creating more anxiety and like a more negative inner dialogue, I think, for sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I think that is the biggest one I can think of, like groupthink to like, you have to eat this way.
Yeah. Yeah. That, and again, the overall idea of being in the military, like in the infantry, you're in the infantry for you know what you're going to be up against. You have an idea. You know what your job is. Your job is to be on the front fucking lines, shooting and doing whatever the hell else you got to do to accomplish the mission.
Yep.
And so the group thing takes over as far as like, again, who the enemy is, and just, yes, these people are the enemy. Fuck these people, blah, 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 blah. They want to kill us. They killed my fucking brother, whoever it is. And again, that can be so counterproductive at times, because there were situations overseas where I was greatly assisted, supported, possibly saved by a local.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's just, again, it's this problematic thing of like, because I remember when I got home, there was a few times where people asked me like, oh, do you hate Muslims or whatever? I'm like, no.
Yeah. Why would
you know what I mean? Why would I hate them? You know? And it's because of that that groupthink mentality that, oh, well, we all joined the military because of this war. We have to hate these people. That might be in our country too, and living here peacefully.
And
you know what I mean?
The way they train you is like the enemy is dressed up like this. He has a head skirt on. He's got their darker complexion. Like they were, but like he has a beard. Okay, so you're telling me everybody with the darker complexion and a beard, I should assume is a terrorist?
Well, and you also think of the groupthink from the perspective of all of these countries that thought that they could go to Afghanistan and win.
Yeah.
Called Afghanistan, what do they call it? The graveyard of civilizations or something like that, because of how many other countries have tried to wage war in that country and it just didn't go well. You know, and then one of the most morale killing things I felt like was going on a mission and you're looking down this ravine and there's an old Russian tank there and you're like, okay, like didn't work out real well for them, but we're going to do better. You know what I mean?
Jesus.
It's like, holy shit.
And then you come back, word comes down that you have a mission in that ravine.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. Well, case in point, another, and this is my last example of groupthink. I was with the Department of Defense. I'm in Afghanistan, and I am conducting a mission as a part of a security detail where we had to escort 2 people to a place. And we're doing what we call a hood brief. So we're all hanging out around the vehicles, getting ready to go on mission. And my team leader, his name was Jay. Jay is talking to the 2 VIPs that were moving that day. The intel guy comes out of the intel shack. Tall, skinny dude, runs over, says something to Jay. Jay is a short little Texan dude. And Jay, I just see him like look down and go, and like shrug. And then he goes back to the VIPs to talk to him. And I see Jay have that reaction. I'm like, whoa. And I like go over to the intel dude. I'm like, hey, dude, what's up? And he goes, well, we got intel that there is I've told this story so many times.
Is it a 60,000 ton V-bed? Not 6D.
6.
With 3 zeros.
I haven't told the story in like at least 5 episodes.
You haven't. And let me guess, was it a cartoonish amount like Wile E. Coyote was driving the truck?
Wile E. Coyote was driving it. Is that not? But so
that's grouping to its finest, dude.
We get told that there is an imminent threat that is operating in the area that is possibly operating in the area that we're going to be running a mission at. And all of us still go on the mission. We knew that there was a possibility that 60,000 pound V-bed was going to be in that area, and we still went on the mission. You know what I mean? So again, it could have worked out super bad, and if it did, who's the asshole? I don't know. I mean, but thankfully nothing happened in that case, in that situation.
Was this in like an urban setting?
Yes.
Okay, so not only would you guys have been fucked, but 60,000 pounds, I feel like that entire urban...
It would have destroyed...
Gone.
That entire area.
Fucking gone.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, again, I feel like being in a military setting, the amount of times that you're dealing with groupthink is way more than you think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So some key takeaways from this. Groupthink can have many negative effects on the overall success of a group, but there are plenty of things you can do to be aware of it. Learn how to think for yourself. Challenge groupthink in your own circle. Know that having somebody play devil's advocate can be a great thing. Provide yourself and your team with the resources that they need when they need it, and don't just jump down somebody's throat because they don't agree with you. Bradley, you got anything else to say?
I do.
Yeah,
not about groupthink, but I just want to say that this morning, like recording thing, I just want to applaud you for some of your word choices and just like your energy and charisma today, dude.
Yeah, pretty good.
On point.
What word choices?
It started with an M.
You liked minutia.
Minutia. I never even heard of that.
Really? Minutia is like the little pieces that make something up, like the little tiny, the most tiny pieces that make up something.
Yeah, and it sounds like I ordered at a restaurant.
Minutia.
Why did you take it? Why did you take it there?
Because it's easy for me to do. All you got to do to have a Japanese accent is have it be guttural.
Yeah, right.
And then say the name of a vehicle. Acura.
Or
I mean, Toyota.
Raise the pitch a little bit and say the name of a restaurant and or country. Right. I could say the name of Tokyo or Hokkaido. Doesn't matter. Tokyo. Tokyo.
I like the.
That's because of how they do it. And they like to
I know. Yep.
Hokkaido.
I love that. Haven't heard that in a while either.
I know. I had to do it.
Very good. So thank you again for listening to this episode of the I'm F.I.N.E podcast. We really appreciate it. It's been growing steadily. Like I said, we're really looking forward to the next few episodes. We actually have some sponsors on board now too, because we've been focusing on that, which is amazing. So we're really looking forward to what we're able to provide to you, the listener. So thank you for making this the 172nd best mental health podcast in Cambodia, according to an email I once got. And until next time, we hope that we helped you go from being freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional to truly being fine about joining a cult.